Hello, and this time on the Mortgage and Protection podcast, we have Paul back from Henchurch Lane to talk all about mortgages for umbrella contractors. It's great to chat with you again, Paul. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much. I'm looking forward to this one. Umbrella contractor mortgages.
Yes, definitely. Well, as you know, we've got a list of frequently Googled questions in front of us. So, shall we get straight into them?
Yeah, let's go for it.
Okay, so naturally, the first question asks, what is an umbrella contractor mortgage and how do they work? I mean, is this a specific product?
Yes and no. So a lot of people will suggest something like if you're self-employed, you get a self-employed mortgage. If you're an umbrella contractor, you'd get an umbrella contractor mortgage. Not necessarily the case. They effectively just come with different criteria. But an umbrella contractor mortgage is a mortgage that's designed for contractors or freelancers who are employed via an umbrella company rather than having a permanent salaried position in essence. Um, they're going to tend to come with more non-traditional income patterns. So usually somewhat a little bit more complex than your standard PAYE setup. Um, and because of that difference, lenders will calculate income based on things like your daily or maybe your hourly, sorry, your hourly or even your daily income scenario.
Mm.
So let's say a contract rate rather than a traditional payslip, which would be relatively straightforward. Criteria is going to differ from lender to lender, but other than the complexities around the income situation, the mortgage product and the process and application is pretty similar to a conventional mortgage application.
Right, okay, brilliant. Well, thank you for that. Really clearly explained. A great start there. So, just following on from that, then people would like to know, why do contractors use umbrella companies?
Okay, so several reasons really, but the main purpose is going to be to simplify financial administration in a nutshell. So umbrella companies are going to deal with the handling of tax affairs, and they're usually then going to pass down things like employment benefits that you wouldn't necessarily have unless you otherwise set up a limited company in your own right to get those benefits. So things like um, payroll processing is going to be dealt with by them. You're going to have a much more reduced amount of paperwork yourself to deal with
Mm.
as a professional because they're going to take the big load of that off for you. Tax and national insurance filing, things like that are going to be controlled by them. They might well provide you with things like professional insurances might all be included within the package, and it's generally going to make the transition as a contractor between different contracts. It's just going to make the the time element of that a lot less and a lot easier for you to sort of jump between roles and to be a little bit more flexible as a professional or a
Right,
professional,
okay. Or
however.
yeah, however you want to say it there. So just a more seamless process. Okay, let's move on to the next question then. So just to go into a little bit more detail, what criteria do I need to meet for a mortgage as an umbrella contractor?
Okay, so the key criteria that lenders are going to look to assess and use to determine whether or not they're going to accept an application from someone working under one of those umbrella companies that's going to be different from your usual criteria that everyone else has to or that will be subjected to. They're going to be things like your contract length. So, contracts can come in many different forms, 6 months, 12 months. That's going to be taken into account. The track record of your contracting history in general. So, have you been doing contracting for 2 minutes or have you been doing it for 2 years? Continuous employment, so they're going to be looking for things like gaps in contracts and things like that. The value of the the contract itself, um, the duration of it, again, contract length, things like that are going to be coming into effect, and the IR35 status. That's generally, going to be something they're looking for when looking at any contractors, but generally speaking, specifically for umbrella companies, they're going to be compliant in that sense because that's their main workload. So
Hmm.
yeah, they're the things that are going to differ from your standard applications.
Right, okay, brilliant. So some points there to bear in mind. Now, the next question, it's always a popular one, I think, isn't it? But in this case, how much can I borrow as an umbrella contractor?
Yeah, so this one is yeah, everyone wants to know how much they can borrow.
Mm.
It's a very vague, ambiguous question. Everyone's going to be different. Every lender will arrive at a different figure. and it's going to be a case by case basis. So some lenders, from a contracting basis, they could start with a figure as high as your day rate times 5 days in a week times 52 weeks in a year. And that's going to give you the annual figure that you use for the income to put into the affordability calculator. So let's say your contract is £200 a day as a rate, then obviously that's £1,000 a week and £52,000 a year. So the
Mm.
£52,000 is what's going to go into the calculator. And a lender is then going to apply some kind of multiple to that income and any other income that you put into the calculator if you've got a joint borrower or any additional income elsewhere. That multiple is going to be somewhere between 4 and 6, depending on what lender you go to. That's going to spit out a gross figure, which is the maximum amount, and then it's going to start to chip away at that, depending on all of the things in the background that you've got, commitments and any other factors as well. So things like loans, credit cards, children, your age, the size of your deposit, all of those things are going to have a bearing on the maximum loan size that you're left with once your whole scenario is crunched. And every lender will be completely different.
Okay, so lots of numbers involved and lots of factors there.
Yeah.
So let's move on then to the next question we have here. How do I prove my income for a mortgage as an umbrella contractor? So is this where the documents come into play?
Yes, it could be a number of any of the following. So your umbrella company payslips, because they will provide you with PAYE payslips, a copy of the current contract, your bank statements, your P60, your self-assessment tax returns potentially, and worst case scenario, they might ask for a letter from the employment, like an employment verification letter. It's probably not going to be all of those things, but it can be, a combination of those.
Okay, brilliant. So a breakdown there of the documents. Now, this is interesting. What's the difference between umbrella and limited company mortgages or getting a mortgage as an umbrella contractor and a limited company director, if that makes sense?
It does, yeah. And I'm sort of looking through um, the, the eye of the people asking these questions. I'm assuming it's people that are actually toying between the two
Mm,
um, and
yes.
thinking about the mortgage later on down the line, as to whether or not it's going to shoot them in the foot one way or the other. But as an umbrella company or as a contractor via an umbrella company, you're effectively, not directly, but effectively, you're looked at as an employee of the umbrella company, and they're going to handle payroll, taxes, and deductions, all of that on your behalf. Whereas a limited company director, they're going to operate their own business, usually take income through a combination of salary and dividends, and that's going to obviously come from their business profits. So the
Mm.
document requests, the list of things that you're going to be asked for, and the income that is going to be arrived at is going to be quite different between both setups. The umbrella company, for the packaging and the underwriting and the actual process itself, in my opinion, it's going to be much more straightforward if you were to compare that to a limited company, because
Right.
realistically, you've not got a whole business entity that you're running underneath your own self. That's being predominantly dealt with by these umbrella companies. So it's going to be easier from a mortgage perspective in summary.
Right. Okay. So that's interesting there. The difference is there. Now, we've got three questions left. So the next one here asks, what are the benefits of getting a mortgage as an umbrella contractor? I think you probably touched on it
Yeah,
there.
we touched on a few there. So, the simplified income assessment, realistically, because you're being paid through a PAYE system, it's going to make things easier to assess, and it's going to make things easier to evidence. And because of that, the timeline or the approval time, I suppose, is going to be likely much quicker.
Mm.
The problem that we find with people that run their own limited companies is normally document evidence, obtaining that, and waiting for that annual submission, whether it be the company submission or your personal income submission. That's done regularly for you through an umbrella company, and it's very easy to evidence. So, you know, it's going to be faster one way or the other. Um, from an employment perspective, again, as I mentioned before, it's quite flexible, and it gives you the autonomy then to hop between different contracts and not have to set up different companies or completely switch how you're employed. So It's going to be flexible in that sense. And as I mentioned previously, because it's an umbrella company, there's a very good chance they're going to be IR35 compliant, which is a factor for people that are contractors as well. So overall, it can be quite beneficial from a mortgage perspective when you compare it to other types of contractors or other types of self-employed applicants. So I wouldn't use the mortgage as a deciding factor as to whether or not you should go. You shouldn't go to an umbrella company. It's more so a case of all of the other benefits that you're going to get that they provide you as to whether or not you choose one route or the other.
Right, okay. So a key pointer there then to take away from the episode. And then really, how do I apply for a mortgage as an umbrella contractor? So what is the process?
Got the phone and call Henchurch Lane.
Easy as that. There we go.
Done. Yeah. No, in fairness, it's one of those things that we say before. We'll always finish it off with how can a mortgage broker help,
Mm,
uh, which is probably what you can ask me next.
you beat me
Um,
to
sorry,
it.
but it comes hand in hand. What I would say
It
with
does.
any type of employment that's outside of PAYE or maybe sole traders, most brokers are going to know that stuff, but very few brokers will know things like contractors and their setups and scenarios and the quirks that come with those. Very few will actually have done the legwork for applicants enough to know where to place that business. So if you were to walk into let's say just a corporate estate agency, 99 times out of 100, they're going to be dealing with employed or very, let's say, non-complex cases. And if
Mm,
you're only exposed to these sorts of cases once in a blue moon, you're not really going to know where to place it. So just make sure you're doing your due diligence when you're looking for the broker of choice. Make sure they've got experience in that field. And it's quite easy to find people that specialize in those specific areas of employment rather than just a generic broker who would deal with your more vanilla stuff um, on a
mm,
numbers basis, right?
yeah.
So that would be my final bit of advice. Just make sure you seek, um, yeah, the broker that knows what they're talking about.
Okay, so definitely a key pointer there. Now you've demonstrated how a mortgage broker can help. Is there anything else we need to know, Paul, or do you think we've covered all that we can there?
I think we've covered all that we can. A lot of these contractor questions are going to sort of almost duplicate or cross over to the other podcasts that we've done. So by all
Mm,
means, if you look at limited company mortgage contract, the limited company podcast, or the self-employed bits that we've done as well,
mm.
then they're probably going to be helpful and go reiterate some of these questions or additional ones that you might need to look at as well.
Yes, definitely. There's lots of episodes, isn't there, recorded? So, yeah, have a look at those. Thank you for that, Paul, as always. And
Welcome.
I'm sure we'll speak to you again soon.
Speak to you soon, Tessa. Take care. Get well
You
soon.
too. Thank you.